Caprice PPV, and today we're going to be talking about everything you need to know before you buy a Caprice PPV. So this video is intended for people who don't own a Caprice, seen them on the street, see them at their police departments, kind of interested in the car and just want to learn more. We're going to be diving in deep and letting you know everything you need to know about the lore, so to speak, about this car. So let's jump right in. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to see more of our cars. On the left is Cody. He'll be coming from you a lot in Illinois, and I'm on the right. We'll be doing a lot of things from installing center consoles to doing fog lights, basically all the mods people like to see on these cars. So we have to understand what Holden is before you understand the Caprice. Holden is a company in Australia which was founded in 1856 and ran until 2020. Holden basically is an Australian car maker until Chevy stepped in. It kind of worked in a partnership. Chevy sent a lot of the American cars out to Australia. If you're looking at this chart, I'm sure a lot of these cars seem familiar to you. However, Holden still had a subset of cars that they made for themselves, such as the Commodore and the Ute. So why are we talking about Holden? Well, the Caprice is actually imported to the US from Australia because the Caprice is actually a Holden model. It is not made in the US, it is made down in Australia, and you can't buy the Caprice here in the US because it was only ever brought here for law enforcement use. So what other cars were brought here from Holden? Why are we talking about this? This is important to understand the Caprice. So in 2004 to 2006, we got the Pontiac GTO. And down in Australia, the car was called the Holden Monaro. And they basically are the same cars, except for when Pontiac brought it over to the US, they changed the front bumper cover to match that Pontiac grille styling of the time. And that's pretty much it. Then in 2008 to 2009, we got the Pontiac G8. Down there, it was the Holden VF or the Holden Commodore, but they're the same car again. The only thing Pontiac changed was the front bumper cover to give it that Pontiac styling. Those I don't even know what they're called. They're just those like kidney bean looking grills that Pontiac was known for at the time. Then in 2011 through 2017, we got the Chevy Caprice. Down in Australia, it was known as the Holden Caprice, and there were some minor differences throughout the car. However, the main difference was just that front bumper cover yet again. Then in 2011 through 27, in 2014 through 2017, we got the Chevy SS, and down there that was the Holden Commodore. And there were no changes between these two models when the SS was imported, except for they changed the Holden logo to a Chevy logo. So that one's probably the most straight import we got out of all three cars. Now, the US isn't the first place to get the Caprice as an import. The Caprice has been imported to South Korea before as the Daewoo Veritas, and they did that from 2009 to 2013. Then in China, they did the Caprice under the badge Buick Park Avenue, and that was done from 2009 through 2012. In Germany, they did it as the Bitter Vero. It looks a little bit different. They did give it a different hood and front bumper cover, but that is still the Holden Caprice in Germany, and that was done from 2011 through 2012. And lastly, Saudi Arabia got the Chevy Caprice under the name Chevy Caprice. They had it a lot longer. I believe they had this body style of Caprice back from 2008, maybe 2007. So in the US, the Caprice came over for police vehicle use. So it got the name Caprice PPV, PPV standing for Police Patrol Vehicle, and it served its life as police cars. Not many departments adopted them, and they actually kind of swiveled off a little bit because the shifter is in the middle. And as a police officer, they like column shifters just because they have all the police siren controllers, radios, laptops all down in that center console area. So when that first year rolled out with that shifter down there, they weren't kind of keen on it. So I don't think many departments adopted them. Another thing about them is they were rear-wheel drive, and a lot of the departments in the areas that get a lot of snow in the US don't want rear-wheel drives. They prefer the all-wheel drives. So I think Chevy was at a losing battle here to platforms such as the Taurus, which had all-wheel drive, the Explorer, which has all-wheel drive, the Charger, which has all-wheel drive, with this Caprice model. And at the same time they were running the Caprice, they were running the Impala PPV, which was front-wheel drive, and was a cheaper option for police departments from Chevy. So when police departments went to look for a new police car, they had the option of getting an all-wheel drive Taurus, which made pretty similar horsepower. They could get the front-wheel drive Impala, which was cheaper and somewhat similar horsepower, or they could go SUV. So I think that's why the Caprice was in a losing battle out of the gates. However, there were still some bought throughout the country. I think about 15,783 to be exact. And you can now get them now that they're phasing those cars out on Gov Deals, Public Surplus, Proxy Bid, or Craigslist. Gov Deals, Public Surplus, and Proxy Bid are all direct from the police department, so you will be the second owner of that car. Craigslist will probably be another person who owned the Caprice straight after auction, and you'll probably be that third or fourth owner on the car. Just know that if you are buying this car from auction, that you will have to put in money to the car. I always say add about $1,000 to $2,000 straight out of auction, just in case you need tires, brakes, rotors, things like that, because police departments aren't going to replace the brakes on a car and then send it off to auction. They're probably going to wear that car out, and once it hits that 90 to 100,000 mile mark or that 7 to 8 year mark, they're going to push it out into the auction in whatever state the car is in. So always add that fee onto the auction, and then the auction price you win it at, there will always be an auction fee of about 10 to 13%. So if you win the car for about $8,000, add on about $1,000 to $2,000 for repairs, and then 13% on that $8,000 to get what you're actually going to be paying for that car. So let's look at the import list over the years. One thing I want you to notice is that these cars, like I said, ran from 11 to 2017. However, I want you to know that in 2014 through 2017, the platform changed completely. So the 2011s through 2013 models, think of them as a separate vehicle from the 2014 through 2017 models. They look the same, they're the same car, it's just that so much has changed between the two models, you can't interchange parts. So a lot of times what I see people asking in the forums is like, hey, my 2014 Caprice needs a new seats. Can I go to a 2011 Caprice and pull the seats? No. Hey, my 2013 Caprice needs a new steering wheel. Can I use a 2014's? No. They're different platforms. They're not the same. Parts don't interchange. Some parts do, such as the bumper cover, the hood, headlights. But when you get to things that work with the interior, the computers, those do not interchange. So just think of them as two separate cars sharing the same look because the platforms are different. Another thing I want you to know with that change is that from 2011 through 2013, there was a detective model of the car, and that's because of how the interiors were set up on the cars. In 2014 through 2017, there was no detective option because it just wasn't offered. That's not how the interior of the car worked on that. Lastly, the thing with these cars I want you to know is that in 2012 through 2017, a V6 option of the car was offered, and that was using the 3.6 LFX City engine, SIDI, not city like a town, which was starting to be offered on a lot of Chevy's cars in 2012, such as the Impala and the Camaro. And with that, Chevy offered an upgrade to the V8 Caprice to anyone buying the Caprice at that time free. So if a police department's like, hey, I want to get a V6 Caprice, Chevy's like, all right, but do you want a V8? Because we're going to give that to you for free as a free upgrade. So there are a lot less V6 patrols out there, which makes them more rare, but at the same time, people who are buying these cars to race them to have a fast car are not going to want the V6s either. So the V6s are always going to be a little bit less in price, even though they're more rare, but because of that, they just don't have the horsepower or ability to make mods to the engine. Lastly, I want you, if you're looking at these numbers and studying them right now, you'll notice that the two most imported colors were the Phantom Black and the Heron White. So if you are going to try and buy a Caprice, you're probably going to end up with a white one or a black one. A lot of these other colors are hard to come by, and they drive prices up in auction when you get a color such as Karma or Prussian Steel. Just because there's for example, Prussian steel, it was only offered on 2014 through 2017. There was only 53 cars made in that color. How many of those cars do you think got totaled by police departments and aren't on the market anymore? So when you get a Prussian steel car, which there's only 50 V8 ones, it's going to push that price up. You'll probably be paying roughly 15,000 at auction for a Prussian steel car. So 15,763 were imported, like I said before, if you see that in the bottom right hand corner of this chart. And who knows how many are actually still running and driving after police crashes, after riots that people stomped on cars and destroyed them. It's just not going to be that same number that was imported. So that also makes these cars a little more rare. We were talking a lot about the platform changes between 2011 through 2013 and 2014 through 2017. I'll go ahead and show you that right now. So on the left is the 2011 through 2013 model. On the right is the 2014 through 2017 model. And as you see, they just don't look the same at all. If you Google a picture of a Pontiac G8 and you look at the interior of Pontiac G8, you will see that the 2011 through 2013 matches that almost to a T, with the exception of that radio area. And if you Google a picture of a Chevrolet SS interior and then compare it to the one on the right, you'll see that it really follows that interior closely. So depending on which model you buy, if you want to add a console or leather seats or a leather steering wheel, you'll have to pick the car that associates with your car most, because Caprices didn't have those options stock unless you had a detective model in the 2011 through 2013, but that's very rare. You're not going to find that in a junkyard and be able to pull a console from that. But you can find a Pontiac G8 in a junkyard and pull a console from that, and you can find Chevrolet SS in a junkyard and pull a console from that. So just keep track of these changes, kind of mentally pick which one you like more, and then understand that if you're going to add aftermarket mods into the inside of your car, you have to pick the car that best associates with it, because these cars do not interchange. Here are some of the typical mods people do to these cars. Like I said, they don't interchange, but on the Caprices, they come with a flat black door handle. People like to get color matched door handles, fog lights to just get a little more light on the road. It looks a little bit better in the front. Cop cars don't have fog lights, so decopying that car a little bit, when you come up on someone, they're not scared of you if they see the fog lights. Center console, it just makes the interior look nicer. Same with leather seats and the steering wheel. Holden conversion, a lot of these people like to bring the cars back to the roots. They'll order the correct Holden grill for the car, and those do interchange between the two cars. So you can get that from Holden Parts USA or from the group on Facebook, which I'll be talking about later. And then you can insert that grill and that trunk badge and then have the Holden logos on your car. Unlocking the radio is a major key if you're going to get a 2011 through 2013 model. The reason for that is because stock you don't get Bluetooth, backup camera, USB import, and the audio quality sucks on the radio. So you're going to be listening to the AM FM all day if you have a 2011 through 2013. But for $250, White Auto and Media will unlock the radio. You just send out your radio box to them. They'll send it back unlocked. And then you have better audio quality. You have Bluetooth. You can add a backup camera if you don't have a 2013 model, because those 2013 models were missing rear speaker channels and a port which allowed the backup camera. That's okay though. You could buy a new box from Australia in that scenario and install it that way. There's a box for tap shifting that is made for both of the 2011 through 2013s as well as the 2014 through 2017. The box is just a little 3D printed box with the electronics inside. It has an on and off switch and then two buttons which allow you to shift through your gears. A lot of people like this so they can keep that car in gear 1 and do burnouts. If you add a center console, however, to the 2011 to 2013 models, you can build that tap shift function directly into the shifter from the Pontiac G8. Backup cameras were standard 2015 through 2017. They can be added to the 2014, but then you'll have to unlock your radio on the 2014, which is cool because then you can get dynamic guidelines for backing up, not available on the earlier models. However, on the earlier models, once you get that radio unlocked, it's just plug and play with the backup camera. Repeaters are also a cool choice people like to put. They either get them from the Buick Park Avenue models or from the Australian or Saudi Arabian models, and they're just basically fill in a plastic filler plate that's on the side fender of the cars. So when you hit your signal light, those repeaters start flashing with your signals. The last major change between all the interior differences that we've talked about in the platform changes is that the 2014 through 2017 has electronic steering, and the 2011 through 2013 has power steering. So, what's a fair price you should be looking at? Well, let's just assume all cars are at an auction and they all have 100K miles. Um, it depends on the color of the car, and it depends on the idle hours of the car, and it depends if the car's V6 or V8. But I want to talk about one last thing while we're on this topic, and that's displacement on demand. In the V8 models only, Chevy or Holden implemented a feature to where if the car is not running hard, you're not gunning it, it cuts off half the cylinders, and that's for fuel economy. Now, when you're cutting off half the cylinders, the other cylinders are not running, which causes lifter failure because the lifters are not moving, so they get stuck. And then you have an issue with lifter ticking and things like that. And so a lot of these V8 cars, what will happen is you'll get them from auction with a lifter tick, or you'll know that down the line because police idle all the time that you're going to get this lifter tick. So you have to remove or delete out the DOD, which is about $1,500 to $3,500. And what that takes is they basically replace all the lifters, put a new cam in the car. I mean, you get an extra 50 horses out of it, and it's definitely a good upgrade, but it's definitely money out of your pocket. Um, so yeah, just take that into account. Always check the idle hours on these cars. You won't be able to check the idle hours on a 2011. It's just not an option. But 2012 onward, idle hours, check them. At 100,000 miles, 5,000 or less idle hours is acceptable on a car. Anything above that, it's like what you're looking at, what issues it's going to cause down the line from all the idling. Cars do not like to be idled. So you can look at the pricing down there. It's really dependent. For example, the $5,000 price on a 2011 through 2013 is like, say, a 2011 V8 in white that has Swiss cheese all over it from 10 different antennas it was running. Um, However, if you get like a Karma color with no holes and it's a detective trim package, then you're probably going to be paying 12,000 at auction for it. But that's just at auction. You got to add in the auction fees and then any maintenance on top of that. So just always plan for that. So thanks for watching. I hope there's a lot of information you got from this. I would highly suggest reading more information on the new Caprice forums and also going and joining the Caprice Owners and Fans group on Facebook. Always check up on new information that they get. There's always new things being imported and sold in that Facebook group. Such as the grills, the repeaters. And if you have any questions, you can comment here, but I would suggest going to that Facebook group first. It's more active than the forums. People are always on there, and they'll be able to set you up straight. And you'll also be able to find a good built Caprice on that group if you don't want to buy one straight from auction. Thanks for watching. Have a good day.